Hello, welcome back to the channel. Welcome aboard if you're new. Today we are going to be starting what will possibly be a new series, depending on how it does. So I get quite a few questions about how things work in the game and how to do things. The game's still in early access. There obviously isn't a ton of information about it out there, and it can be kind of hard to figure out how things are working. They tend to, leave refining tutorials until the end of building a game. So I had a specific question just earlier, and while I was trying to type out an explanation of how it worked, I realized that it would be easier just to make a quick video and kind of show it. And that way, you know, people don't have to dig through the comments or go watch an entire other video for a specific section on how to do something. So I'm going to try making a selection of videos, just explaining different little things in the game. And that way, if you want to see how to do that, you can just go check out that video. All right, so we are going to start off the very first one of these with a question I had earlier from a viewer of Wargame videos asking about moving parts, groups of parts, and also saving groups of parts for later so they can be reused or copied. Because you can do the click drag to copy, but there is another way that's actually quite a bit better if you plan on using the part multiple times. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how parts connect and how root parts work. So when you're building stuff in this game, you essentially have to think of it like a hierarchy or like a tree. So you start with the very first part you build, your first fuselage here. And if you go in and look at the part, it's fuselage, it's part number 1. So this is like our trunk, of our tree, the very base. And everything branches off of that. So if you want to move that, you can click on this and it moves, the trunk and everything that's attached to it, right? But if you grab a branch that's attached to the trunk, like the wing, and move that, it's only going to move that branch and what is attached to that branch. And that's the best way I can think of to describe that. So when you're building, you kind of have to keep that in mind, that the parts are attached to each other. So if I want to move this engine, say, and I grab this, it's only going to move that prop and what's attached to the prop. But if I grab the engine and move the engine is the root part for the transmission here and the prop. So when I move that, it moves all those pieces. Now, it can be kind of difficult to figure out what your root part is sometimes just by dragging them around. So what you can do is to find your root part, you can click here. Let's say we want to get the engine, right? So we've got our propeller here. So if we go to our little wrench icon here and then go up here to connections, it'll show our connections for our prop. And you can see here, it'll show that it's connected to the gearbox. And if we highlight that, it'll show it. If we click on the gearbox, it'll show that gearbox is connected to the prop assembly, but at the top of that, the root part for the gearbox is going to be the engine. So if we click on that, now we have the engine selected. And you can see that the part that's connected to is the wing, not the actual pod around it, but the wing itself. So if I select that, then we got the whole wing. So you can actually go through all your parts like that to find your root part. So let's say I want to make a copy of this engine to use, right? So we can select our prop, get our connections, and go through them until we get to our root part that we want, which is our prop engine. Right? So now we've got our engine selected, and it's got all the parts with it. Now we can't really see it right now because of all this stuff. So what we can do is we can actually hide that and select it that way also if you want. But we know that this is the root part for the gearbox and the propeller. Now, if we want to save that for later, we can actually click that and drag it right up here to create sub-assembly, right? And we just leave that there and we give it a name. We'll just call it engine rar. All right. Now, everything's where it went. We didn't have to actually move anything to do that. Now, if we go up here to our parts, closed it. There we go. We go down here to the bottom, Sub-Assemblies, and you'll see we've got our sub-assembly here. We just drag it out, and there we go. We've got our whole engine. And you can do this with whatever groups of parts you want. Like, let's say I wanted to, use these wings for something else, or I wanted to make another set of them, right? I can drag that up there and make a sub-assembly for that. And then if we go there, we've got our wing sub-assembly. We've got the whole thing with the engines and everything that's attached to it. So the root part, which is the wing, and then all the branches that are off of that, if that makes sense. And then we can just get rid of these whenever we want. And there we go. So you can do that with all kinds of, pretty much any assembly you want. So if I wanted to make a copy of, say, my, turret gun in here. So we got the barrel, right? We'll go to there. That's connected to that little piece of fuselage, which is connected to the hinge, which is connected to the rotator, which is connected to the piston, and then the base. So I can take that piston and then, or let's say I just wanted to save just the gun, right? With this little rotator hinge, I just want to save just that part, right? So we can drag that up into sub-assembly and save that if we want. Anything you want. So that's, hopefully that'll make it a bit easier for moving the parts around and saving parts for later. And, like I said before, I want to try and keep these fairly quick so they're easy to understand and quick to get through so, you can get to actually building. So hopefully that'll help some people out with moving parts around, because I know it was definitely confusing for me at first, and it still can be sometimes. They don't do a great job of explaining it, but once you kind of try and think of it like a tree and you figure out how to navigate through those different parts and figure out what's connected to what, then you can kind of have a bit more versatility in how you build stuff. And then also using the sub-assemblies can be very, very useful if you're building a lot of something. Say these, 4 engines. I could build the engine, add it to sub-assembly, and then just make as many duplicates as I want. So I hope this has been a helpful episode. We've managed to keep it under 10 minutes, which is pretty impressive for me. So if you have any other questions about how the game works, go ahead and ask me down in the comments, and I might add it to another episode. And I am always happy to help. So let me know. I will do my best to explain anything in the game that I can. I obviously don't know everything, but I have learned quite a bit over my time playing this. So until next time, take care, be safe, and I will see you later.